Hello, everyone. I'm going to be discussing season 5, episode 1 of Handmaid's Tale. As you can see, I've got my of Santa shirt on today in preparation for Handmaid's Tale and reacting. It's been a long time, guys. I have been excited and I have been waiting, anticipating this day. It's finally here. I could have actually watched yesterday, but there were a lot of things going on and I wasn't able to get to the video until late, and it was late. I was tired, so I went to sleep. I don't want to go on too long about what might happen in this episode. I think we've gotten a decent amount of information from different people who have worked on the show, so that we have some idea of what's coming. A lot more of an idea than we did at the end of the last season. So those of you who have watched, what did you think? I loved this episode. I felt that they really did a good job starting right where we left off and really giving us a good idea of what was happening and what is likely to come, really building that story. And I am looking forward to seeing plenty more. One of the main aspects I think that we got to see in this episode was June going through this process that she's going to have to go through because of what she just did. Not only did she murder somebody, but she had already been through all this trauma. And while it was supposed to be to help her get revenge and help close this chapter in her life, I don't think it's going to succeed. I don't think it is succeeding. And it is going to add to that trauma. So she has to go through this, and we get to see that throughout the episode. We also get to see how her actions, how her emotions, how her break with sanity is affecting everyone around her, and how they are trying to help her deal with it as well. It's interesting because I think we've seen June in several points where she was going through various points of insanity. Would I say June is straight up insane? To an extent. I think we can see through her story that there are varying levels and that there are ebbs and flows to her insanity, and sometimes she seems to be a little more sane and sometimes she is just really cracking like she was on this episode, especially at the beginning of this episode. Seeing her at the tub getting ready to take a shower, but going through this turmoil of trying to process everything that she was just involved in, even though it was her actions, she did it. It's still traumatizing, and she's still trying to process it, and she can't process it, and her brain can't process it. And seeing her there go through that while the shower is running, and then never actually take a shower, and then actually go back in, pick up her daughter just like she did the previous episode while she still had blood all over her. And I was like, June, what are you doing? Like, seriously. I realize you're traumatized. I realize you just went through some shit and you're just not ready to deal with it. You could at least shower, wash up something, and instead she turns the water off and goes and picks up her kid. That was like, really, what the heck? Unbelievable. Now, after June leaves, she meets up with the people that the other handmaids basically that helped her to destroy Fred, and they still want revenge. June was able to exercise her ability to get revenge over Fred, and they still feel like they need to get revenge as well. It's just not something that's feasible. They're not, like, in the first place, it's wrong to go around killing people, but I get where they're coming from. I get why they want so badly for the people that have oppressed them to pay. I do understand that. But it isn't feasible to pick off each of these oppressors. They are in Gilead. They are hidden. They are secured. safe from them, and we can look at that as good or bad, but it makes it so that it's really not a feasible option. The idea that they're just going to keep using Nick to try to pull people out so that they could kill them, that's not a feasible option. That's not going to happen. June doesn't provide them any hope or incentive. She doesn't provide them any reassurance. She doesn't provide any further planning so that they can feel like they're doing something. She basically says that, yeah, I know you want revenge too, but this is just not going to happen. And she doesn't come up with anything else. I think she could have at least tried to create a plan that looks forward, and while not necessarily picking off each of their individual oppressors, but at least working on trying to find a way to take down Gilead. I think that most of the people in that situation could probably get on board with that, but June frequently has these issues. Sometimes she does very well at planning certain things, but she seems to leave things out, and she doesn't seem to plan past her most recent endeavor. So if she has one thing she wants to plan for, she doesn't seem to plan past that. And once that thing is done, she doesn't seem to get herself in a mindset to plan past that. And I think it would help her and help the people that she is convincing to follow her to put up with her in the first place. June is not an easy person to put up with. June can get people to follow her, but June is also self-centered. She can be very violent. There's just all these flaws that June has as the human being she is that make her an uncomfortable person to be around and an uncomfortable person to work with. So I think it would help her if she would at least like plan ahead a little bit, you know? Don't just plan for the moment and then forget everything else and forget everyone else. And sometimes she does include like planning for everyone else, but too often, if it isn't specific to that specific event that she is working on, that specific goal that she is working on, she doesn't pay any mind to anybody else or anything else or any other needs. And I see that as a problem. I think a lot of people do. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the issue with Serena as well, because Serena has this bit of a following as well. Both characters, like I said, they're good at getting people to follow them, but they have these character flaws that make them not the greatest people. Serena's good at getting people to follow her, but she really has these manipulative, conniving intentions with pretty much everything she does. And so while we haven't gotten to see a lot of the inner workings of those people that follow her and how following her might harm or help them at some point, I think it would be interesting to see some of that, to see how Serena's actions influence those people. But we don't usually get to see that because Serena isn't usually doing that kind of planning. Serena usually is just taking advantage of the situation and the people that are following her rather than trying to lead a movement. I guess in some ways she sort of tries to lead things, but it's more like, oh, these people are paying attention to me and they really like me and I'm going to take advantage of it. Now, of course, Serena finds out what happens with her husband and she seems very upset and distraught. And while some of that I believe is legitimate grief, I do think that some of it is her taking advantage of the situation. Serena is very manipulative. Serena can draw up tears without actually being sad or upset. She may be very sad and upset about her husband dying, but I think she is more taking advantage of the situation. But we'll see. We'll see later on. I really think that's what is coming, though, is Serena just full blown taking advantage of the followers, taking advantage of the situation, and using anything she can to put herself into a better position. And right now, she's in a pretty dire predicament, so any better position is better than what she's in right now. Although I think really her prison situation could be so much worse. But we'll leave it at that. I was thinking though when they showed Tuello telling Serena about this situation about her husband, like he really has this, like has such a hard job in some ways, because there's been so many situations where Tuello has to deal with the real human aspects of his job, of of the lives of the people that he is interacting with. And I imagine that would be very, very difficult. It seems like his job is probably pretty cushy and pretty privileged, but at the same time, like seriously, you've gotta deal with these refugees coming into Canada who are traumatized. You have to deal with these prisoners that you that you are taking in. You've got to deal with Serena and Fred Waterford. You've got to deal with all the emotional aspect, telling them about these deaths, telling them about when they can't get what they want, telling them when government things that they hoped would pull through for them fell through. I mean, remember last season when he had to deal with June, finding out that Fred was going to get off scot-free. And she was screaming at him, "I'm going to kill you." Like, I'm sure you remember that. Like, he has to deal with stuff like that. It's like a regular part of the job. So yeah, I was thinking that about that aspect of Tuello. I was also thinking that I would really, 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 please, 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 like to hear some actual details and information about what actually went on with Serena and Tuello behind the scenes, the stuff that we didn't see, that obviously seems to be simmering under the surface. And we get to see that simmering. We get to see little touches of something went on and something's going on, but we don't get to hear any details. We don't get any real information to fill in those gaps. All we have is our assumptions. And my assumption, like I'm sure many people, is that they had an intimate relationship. And my assumption is also that Serena's baby is his. And I think a lot of people probably think that. But there's no real nitty-gritty information for us to really grasp onto to find out if that's actually right. So I would like, please, showrunners and producers and all of you, please give us something. Give us something. Oh yeah, and I saw Tuello playing on another show. I think it's called The Devil in Ohio, as the husband of this lady that took in this traumatized girl that escaped from a cult. And we just started watching that. But yeah, I noticed him and I was like, hey, isn't that guy from Handmaids? And my husband had no idea what I was talking about. He knew Handmaids. He didn't know who Tuello was. So I had to clue him in. In spite of all of June's seeming insanity and her going through this process, she does at least come to the determination that she needs to turn herself in. I didn't expect what happened. I did not expect there to be like no recourse, because June did something really, really horrible. I understand why she did it, but it was still really horrible, and there should still be real consequences for it. And she just killed somebody and so far seems to have gotten away with it. I highly doubt that Gilead or Serena will ever let her get away with it. But the law, the systems in place that are supposed to take care of stuff like that are like, well, this happened in no man's land. This is nobody's territory. We're not going to do anything about it. I was very surprised about that, especially when Tuello stepped in. I thought Tuello was in like a higher position. He's been dealing with these international courts, so I thought he had some kind of pull internationally, and that maybe there might be some international law that could cover those positions where you aren't quite in anybody's territory. I don't know if there's any legal people here that understand how that stuff works, but when it comes to stuff like that, where there's some territory that isn't really owned by another country, or who possesses it is in question, is there some kind of law? Are there laws in place to kind of handle that? Because I found that very odd that she's just getting let off scot-free when it comes to the law enforcement system, the government system that's in place, because it was in no man's land. But good for her for now, I guess. But I still think she needs to be held accountable, and I think she will be. But I also thought it was interesting on the topic of law enforcement and systems of government and stuff like that when it came to Serena, because Serena is in a massively privileged position considering her situation. She is in a very cushy prison, and she has been given basically whatever she wants while she's in prison. And she is acting very overly privileged, making demands and things like that. And at least we finally got to see somebody put her in her place a little bit. So they go to take her out of there, to take her to a more secure location. And the little bit that I know about law enforcement, the little bit that I know about the military, I was in the military, but I was only in communications. But when you are in the military or law enforcement or anything like that, you're not usually given all the information. You are given a set of orders and you are expected to comply with them. Serena is sitting in a prison. She is in prison. They come to take her to a more secure location, and she starts making demands that she's not going to go anywhere until whatever. Like, seriously? But she's grown to expect that. She's been given everything that she wants basically since she got in here. So it was nice to see somebody just straight up tell her, like, no, you are not going to just give us demands. We are going to do our job, and our job was to take you to a more secure location. And if you can't cooperate, then we're going to have to manhandle you and force you out. So I was glad to see that, because seriously, what kind of international prison is it that she's in, where she's got these cushy accommodations? She basically gets whatever she wants, and she keeps making demands, and everybody just, like, what? You're supposed to kiss her butt because she thinks that she's special? Put her in her place. But it would be nice to see people put her in her place more. She shouldn't be treated like she's special. She shouldn't be put in these cushy accommodations when she's a prisoner. No. One of the things that I wanted to take note of or discuss a little bit was the loved ones that are dealing with the repercussions of June's actions, of how June is and the state that June is in. Luke's been trying to understand. Luke has been trying to be understanding, but he's in this position where he's straddling this reality of really caring about June and wanting to understand and understanding some aspects, but really never being able to truly understand her experience and what she's gone through. I think it makes it very hard for everybody around around the whole situation, because he can't ever get to that spot where he really understands what she's going through. I think she knows that and she feels that, and so sometimes she takes it out on him. I don't know. I don't know that there's much you can do with it. It's just that he does seem to want to understand. It's just something that he's never really going to be able to understand because he's never gone through the horrific crap that she's gone through. He's gone through other horrific crap. It's a different kind. And so it's going to have different reactions, different feelings, and different consequences. We have Moira. I was so proud of Moira for sticking up for herself, for telling June straight up, I don't really trust you with the child. As her best friend, and seeing what she's going through and knowing that she's traumatized, that would probably be a hard thing to do, but she did it. She told June, like, I don't trust that you're in a state to take care of your child. And June just straight up was like, yeah, I thought I was going to be in prison. Like, I have literally walked away from my family because I don't feel like I'm fit. So it's a complicated situation, but especially for those loved ones. They have to see what she is going through, what she is dealing with. They have to be part of the situation. At the same time, they sometimes have to correct her in a point where maybe she might not want to be corrected, or maybe some people might feel sorry for her, or might be afraid of her. Like Duello was telling June that about Serena being scared, that being dangerous. And then June's like, yeah, Serena is always going to be dangerous. And Serena's dangerous in a different way than June is. Serena's danger doesn't look so outwardly overwhelming. Serena works under the covers, and she, like I said, she's very manipulative, so she does shit behind the scenes that can cause massive turmoil. I mean, she freaking helped create Gilead, so we can see the kind of turmoil her manipulations make. But yeah, both very dangerous. And I feel for the loved ones that do have to be working with either of them, dealing with either of them. It's complicating, it's hard, and you can't just turn off your emotions and your love for somebody even when they've done horrible things. I think we're seeing some of that with Tuello. I think they've had a serious relationship, and we have not seen that, but I think he is at a point where he's having to deal with the conflict of his feelings, yet seeing what a horrible, manipulative, and dangerous person Serena really is, in spite of how he might feel about her. So the one other thing that I remember is how they have said goodbye to Emily on the show, which I was not expecting. I knew Emily was not going to be on anymore. And I liked Emily as a character, but her character definitely has her own demons. Like June has these demons that she is trying to fight with or trying to deal with, and Emily's got her demons too. They're both in, I think, certain points of having to deal with all of that anger and hatred and trauma and wanting revenge and needing to be able to put all of their emotions somewhere and not really having an adequate place to put them while they're in Canada. So Emily left and went back to Gilead to fight Gilead. They said to find Aunt Lydia. Even if they don't put her on the show, it would be nice to just hear little clips every now and then about what gossip and stories are going on with whatever is going on with Emily back in Gilead. But it wasn't something I was expecting. I knew there was a chance that they could have June go back to Gilead, even though it doesn't follow the books. I knew there was a chance that they could say, oh, Gilead is going to forcibly take Serena back, maybe make her a handmaid or something. Um, I knew there was a chance that Serena could try to manipulate the situation like she's doing so that she can get back to Gilead and try to get on their good side. I knew that. Those were the main two people, though, that I was thinking that might go back to Gilead. But I was not expecting Emily, and I probably should have been. Emily's been in a state. Emily has gone through such severe trauma, and she has gotten to points where I definitely should have suspected that that might be something that she would want to do, to really like go in and fight from the inside or fight from closer, like the stuff that you can do from Canada is just, I think for somebody like her, is probably underwhelming and probably feels very, very insufficient. At the same time, when they said that she left and went back to Gilead, I was just like, oh my God, like I need a minute to sit there with this, to sit there with my feelings, because this feels horrible. I felt like crying. There was a couple times, and this was one of the times I felt like crying. And I know handmaids can do that to you, but this wasn't really the kind of handmaids episode that usually would make me cry. So I actually like the storyline. I like that they did that. The way that her wife looked, the look on her face, I was so worried at first that they were going to kill her off, that it was going to be like she had some kind of accident or committed suicide or something like that. But then it was that she left. She willingly left to deal with her demons. That I wasn't expecting, but I still think it's probably a good thing for her. It's probably what she really needs to do, because I really feel like Emily has needed an outlet for a long time, and she has needed a way to really sort through her trauma in a way that really does work out some of the awful crap that caused her trauma directly. And if that means going to Gilead to fight the good fight in Gilead, even though Gilead is freaking dangerous as hell, even though she is likely to die there, if that means going to Gilead to find Aunt Lydia and put an end to her, which I think we know that that's not going to happen, but I get it. I get it. She needs to deal with her demons, and to me that probably is like the best outlet she has right now, because staying in Canada I don't think is doing it for her. Because these girls are not going to be able to keep doing what they did at the end of the last season and picking off their oppressors. That's just not likely to happen. They're not going to have that kind of access. Even if they manage to get that access at the point that they did with Fred, that's not something Gilead's going to allow. They're not going to allow people to keep pulling victims over there. That's not going to happen. You know, Gilead, when something bad happens, they crack down and they make their security tighter and they make it harder for anybody to get in or out. I've got to go and pick my child up from school. I'll watch it again, but I'm good with that. And then I can get a reaction out. I know it'll probably take a while because YouTube's processing takes forever, but hopefully soon. It was nice doing this discussion, and I will be back not even next week. I'll be back as soon as I have the discussion for episode 2. And you can look for my reaction videos whenever I manage to get them processed. Bye.